To me, this trip was like one that I never knew, you know, I would be able to do and get to go do because I don't travel much. And it impacted me. It impacted me a lot because of all the sites that we saw and, the people that we learned about. The first place that we went, like the Capitol building and the White House and stuff like that. When we went into those places, we didn't go into the White House, but when we went into the monuments and everything else, I saw I saw, in United States history, but I didn't see all of it. I didn't see what I hadn't seen before. I'd already seen all this. I didn't see anything about my people in there. There was a timeline around the wall. I didn't see anything about, anything, people of color. I saw a Native American scene, that was it. I didn't see anything about black people in there at all. I saw Martin Luther King and I saw Rosa Parks, but again, we talk about them all the time. So it wasn't anything new. I was a little bit disappointed because I didn't see representation in there of myself and my people, knowing that we put so much blood, sweat, and tears and lives into what the world is today. So that kind of I don't know, it was odd. It was a sad feeling. But then when we visited other places like the War Memorial, I saw statues of black people. I saw black people, I saw Native people, I saw Latino people. It was just a good mix and representation of everybody who put their lives into the world that we have today, for who fought for us to, do what we're able to do and do, and be great. And it was also a really good experience because in Spokane, as it is a big city, it's one of the biggest cities in Washington, if not the biggest. But you don't see a lot of black people in different careers. We're not, it's you see the same people doing the same stuff. Here we went to Howard and we saw the colleges and we saw us actually succeeding and we saw us winning and we saw us, as doctors and nurses and lawyers, and we saw us as academics, which we are, which we don't get to see in Spokane. So I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity that I was given.
She said exactly
So the impact of this trip, it meant a lot to me because outside of just the U.S. history stuff, it was the black history that really just was powerful to me. And especially just going to Howard. And like she said, we got to see black doctors, black lawyers, and that definitely took me to a whole nother mindset of just trying to move people away from those stereotypes about, oh, black people are thugs, oh, black people just do crack, cocaine, all that stuff. And, we get to change their mindsets into, we're professionals, when it comes to the real world. And especially when it came to the African American Museum, they even said we can take photos. And when it came to that bottom floor, shoot, I couldn't even take photos because all the messages, all the photos, they were very powerful to me. And we don't even see that in Spokane at all. And because Spokane is predominantly white, we're surrounded by a bunch of white people, and being able to just step out of that space and step out of that zone, that was really powerful to me, and I could not be more grateful for this trip at all.
So for me, this experience was a little bit different from what I heard about everybody else. This was kind of conflicting for me, if I'm being 100% honest. So first and foremost, I'm gonna put it out there. They paid us $300 to come here and have a good time. Did y'all peep that? Everything was free. We didn't pay for a damn thing. We didn't pay for nothing, and still got paid $300 to be here and just to experience what's going on. So we got paid to have a good time. There's that. So that, extremely grateful for it. Although I was a little bit conflicted about this trip because it's being out in the city all you see is black people. That's it. But then you look at the buildings and the monuments and everything, and it's like we're not represented anywhere. But there's so many of us here. Like, it just reminds me of modern day slavery pretty much, because it's like we're in this environment where we're not represented for anything. We don't have no credit really anywhere. But this is where everybody's at. And I mean, it's beautiful. I love to see everybody gather together and, express our culture in different ways as a community. But it's like we're not represented here at all. So it's just really conflicting to see the population, the way that everybody interacts and how diverse it is. But then it's like everything built out here is nothing's really diverse out here as far as like the buildings and everything. So that was a little bit conflicting for me. But apart from that, you paid me $300 to come out here, have a good time and learn. Like, and I'm open for any new knowledge that I can withhold. So very appreciative. Me, I like to travel a lot. It's been a dream for me since I was a child. So again, to be getting paid to travel, I don't have a problem with that at all. And I enjoyed myself a lot. So that's all I really have to say. I was a little bit conflicted about the environment and the people in the environment, but overall I had a really good time and was able to experience something new. So we don't show up anywhere out here at all. We're going to all these different monuments, all these different, places that hold all this history, but it has like nothing to do with us. Like, we're not I'm not gonna say it doesn't have nothing to do with us, because it has a whole lot to do with us. But it's like we're not represented, not credited or anything. But all you see out here is black people. It's like, does anybody else see it? Like, come on. I'm just saying.
You only saw us when places dedicated.
Right. Right. And then
United States
even
history
then,
is from black people, so that's why I was really that was refreshing.
another thing that also had conflicted me about even the African American Museum is the first floor. Why do we start with slavery? When we were kings and queens in the beginning, that just doesn't make sense to me. It's like we did not start in slavery. Me personally, I would not want to bring my child to that museum, because yes, it is powerful, but it's like we didn't start where we really came from. Bringing a child into that environment, it's like you're walking into an environment where you're being told, like, okay, you were beaten, you were forced to do this, you had to do this is where you come from. Then you had to fight in order to be equal. Then came all the success and the power and everything. But it's like we already had that. So that was really conflicting for me at the museum as well. Come on, nice. For real. It was. Then even the monuments out here too, it's like y'all have Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. That's all we saw of us is Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. There were so many people that helped Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Then even that, it's like the monument is for slavery. The people that died for us to be here. So it's like even that frustrates me, because why are we not having the kings and queens out here? Why do we have the people that sacrificed their life when they had help doing that too? Y'all aren't talking about the other people that are with Rosa and with Martin Luther King. It took a community and didn't just take those two. So I'm not gonna lie to you, this trip was frustrating for me. It was frustrating, it was conflicting, but it was an eye opener. So
Yes. I can't top that now.
I'm not a preacher, y'all. I'm not.
Dang. I can't really top that, because a lot of things she said is how I feel. But one thing that, like, when we were going around, like, having the tour and doing, like, just seeing everything, the whole entire time, I just was thinking about how I'm just lucky to be alive and be in this space. Because, like, yes, and where we went, like, we weren't really we wasn't represented. But I also was like, but even then, even though we didn't get the representation that we wanted or, like, we need, we got something. Which sounds bad, but, like, for me, I just feel like, meaning, like, okay, how I mean it is, like, yes, we don't get the representation we deserve, which we never have. I personally feel like we never will. But how do I say this? We got something better than nothing, if that makes sense. Like, which just sounds bad, but, like, I think we should be at least appreciative of what we do have. Which,
progress.
yeah, like, we're, like, I mean, I feel like us as, like, our new generation, like, we're still building. Like, we're not done. So I feel like we shouldn't have, like, like, we shouldn't, like, down on us. Because, like, we are a smart generation. But anywho, back to what I was saying. I just felt like the whole entire time, I just felt like I was lucky to be here. I was lucky to be alive. I was lucky to be able to do this trip. I was lucky. I mean, I'm even lucky to be right here talking, to be alive. That's how I feel. And I can't really say that much because y'all are just on a roll here. So, so yeah.
So there was something that Verla had mentioned, and it's crazy because I sat down and processed it, and she had said, you know, our white schools, our white institutions are paying for groups of white folks to go on college tours, but nobody paid for us to go on one before this. Our white institutions are not paying for us to go and see what we don't learn in our history classes. We don't learn about, like, I gained so much new knowledge through that museum that I would have never learned in high school. So I am beyond grateful for this opportunity, also knowing that Howard is my dream school, and to be able to have the opportunity to come to DC and where my future could be one day is incredible. So that's what I have to say.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this opportunity, first of all, and then like one of my favorite memories was definitely like the museum part about like the. I remember we were talking about the numbers and stuff like that, and like that really like meant a lot to me because like knowing like I'm from like after things started from the western part of Africa, and that's where I'm kind of like that's where I'm from, the west side, and then it's just like seeing the numbers of like how like not even the numbers that are on the wall, like those are not even true, just like estimation and estimated numbers are on the walls and stuff like that, and just seeing that just made me view things in a different way and stuff like that, and that's just mostly it.
Just one more thing. Just something I noticed. Okay. Something I noticed that when we were at the African American Museum, when we like started at the beginning, it was very like dark and gloomy, and like the air was different, and like just different things you noticed, temperature, room wise, everything. And the more you went up, the more it kind of lightened, but barely. Like just the tiny details of how the air was, the lighting, where the lighting was, audio, everything was like, for me it was definitely like a sensory overload, but not in a bad way. It like made me not feel like that like I was there when it happened, but it made me like,
Put you in their perspective.
yeah, like it made me feel like for me each part, each different area I went to, was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, traveling.
It was really good.
Oppression tries to suffocate us. We rose up. Now we can breathe.
Yeah.
He wants to go. One thing I'd like to thank you guys for bringing us on the trip. Plus, one thing I learned from the museum was that the Emmett Till, that was one really serious thing back then, where the police could do anything, or like the people can do anything to you, and nobody can like no black person can like talk or like speak out about it, and we would all come together at one, like we'll all come together and at one time and like march from far to come see Martin Luther King and everybody. So that was just one thing I learned from this.
Yeah.
What year did that incident happen to Emmett Till?
1995.
55. How old was he?
14.
He's 14 years old. Okay. And what was the accusation?
That he whistled at He said whistle.
They said that. Yeah. He said way worse. Like they said that he whistled at her.
Did she say he whistled? I heard the whistle. That's what I thought it was.
A lot of that was said, but it's really. So So did she ever change her story?
Yeah, she did. She did. Before she admitted that, yeah, she did when she was old. Before she was gonna die.
Say it again. She did win.
She did when she was old, and she was like close to dying. Yeah.
Close to dying.
There's a video or something like that.
So she recanted her story that what she said really didn't happen.
So a 14-year-old boy was brutally murdered
So
because of that.
what was the reason why his mother wanted to make sure that the whole world saw his body?
To show like the racism that happens in America, something like that.
To show the hatred that the white people really have. Yeah. I think it was to create a new path for upcoming women and their children. You know, it was to put it out there and to. I think she was advocating for herself, but I think she was also advocating for a community of women that were having black children. I think that's what it was. You know, it was like bridging the gap for the next generations to come. I
Okay.
think that she did it so that people couldn't say that it didn't happen, because that's what they do with our history, and that's what they do to us. They consistently say it did not happen. And I think she just wanted, you know, to show the world like what happened to her baby. And like I was listening to the video, it was heartbreaking. Every time I read the story I cry, but it was just, she just wanted the world to know what really happened.
I agree with you, Tim. I also feel like her, like, doing that and letting the whole world see it. Also, like, nobody could say that it wasn't as bad as she may have explained it to anybody. So it was like there's evidence. Like, many people saw it. It wasn't just her. It wasn't just a few people. Because a lot of people like to, like, when things happen, like, people like to downplay, like, maybe it wasn't that bad, or maybe, you know, like, if somebody says something, maybe I didn't hurt your feelings that bad, but, like, this was, like, physical evidence to see that it wasn't bad. That's
Yeah.
Basically, she said that when she was in the South and they were saying that all these things was happening, she was basically saying that it didn't really matter to her. Like, it wasn't, it didn't affect her, so it didn't really bother her that much. And then when it did happen, then she realized that she was wrong and that it was.
So my personal experience coming to DC, I'd say, was pretty good overall. It's very, like, I've been to Florida once and there was more black people there, and just, like, it sounds funny out of context being like, oh my god, black people, because, like, that sounds bad, but it's like you never see that really in Spokane, because, like, it's like a surprise. It feels like you're like, oh my goodness, there's other people of our community here. So it's good actually seeing people that look like you, because representation is important. And then, wild. I think traveling around was interesting as well. Like, seeing the monuments and the Capitol was interesting, because it just feels very typical history-wise, the way that they walked us through the Capitol. It's like, here's all these great people, and it's typical, just the white people that didn't really do, like, they did stuff, but it was like, they have the racist history, we know. And then, like, seeing Christopher Columbus having multiple, like, statues and art was so weird, because, like, especially in the timeline of America, because Christopher Columbus never set foot in America, because he was traveling other places and doing horrible things. So it's just like, why is this here in the timeline? He was never, but I mean, that's very fitting for America, and especially here, that doesn't surprise me. And then the African American Museum was very, very beautiful. I was glad to have that experience to go there. I was very emotional seeing certain things and just, like, re-experiencing it, and I am very grateful, at least, despite it being our school being so whitewashed, and how history and learning history in high school is very whitewashed, to have the experience to take U.S. history perspectives and get to actually learn at least a little bit about other experiences. Because some of the, like, the massacres and other things that happened that I read about in the museum, I actually got to learn about prior. So I was very glad for that experience of even learning that before and then relearning it again. And then seeing, like, I guess, women in history, because even back at the Capitol, like, I forget her name, but one of the women that helped try to, like, get women's rights into, like, the U.S., she didn't care about black women's rights, so it was only white women's rights. So it's like, you're pushing for something good, but not for all. So it's kind of like, I think, how, like, when kind of like separation, like, separate but equal, it feels like that. And it was very interesting seeing, like, the KKK gowns and other things like that, like, because it looked dirty and worn, and I was like, oh, it was very scary seeing that just in person, because, like, wow,
actual people could have worn that and were there in the moment experiencing that. It was very good learning about that and just experiencing that and being there in the moment to experience the history and just like relearning like how everything connects. Because like if you're like, think about the police, I guess, like how if stuff is built on a racist structure and that never changes, that's going to continue out. Like think about how racist housing is, how racist the police are, anything like that, it's going to stay. If it's built on a poor structure, it'll stay bad. Just like with our government, how like nothing really good gets passed, or like how it's very racist still systemically, it's going to stay racist systemically. So it's like you need to like rebuild it from the ground up for it to not be, all crappy. But that's just me.
But I never heard her speak before.
Might have a small thing. So being in DC, it was really important to me because, okay, cool. So, so being in DC, it was really important to me because we get to learn about history in like textbooks. We get to learn about history in the start of middle school, with just typical history. We learn about the Civil War, just dating back to how America formed in general, and just seeing it in person today, all the history, all the monuments, it really moves me because in school, sometimes some people don't listen. They'll be like, "Oh, why should we care about people that lived like 100 years ago?" And da da da. And like they don't really care because they just take that for granted and they just live to see today. But honestly, living to see, living to see the perspective of people in the past was just really moving for me because not only does it show me how people, came from the bottom and made it all the way to the top from the past, but it shows us how we can definitely shape our future for sure. So that's what I got.
All right.
So good. Oh,
Started from the bottom, but now we here. All right.
So one other thing I would like to add is about representation, and I already spoke about that a little bit, but like seeing about like the war monuments that we saw was also like good representation. I feel like not the best, but like I think sorry, my sentences are not structured, but the statue of the white man, I believe the Hispanic man and the African American man was very beautiful because it shows like how many people of diverse backgrounds like here in America had to fight in certain wars. And then even in the African American Museum, like seeing about African Americans in World War One, you never hear about that. Like you'll learn in history, you'll be like, oh yeah, people fought in the war and like it was so terrible and all these other things, but you never hear about African American people in the war because like I don't remember the exact dates, but it was like 1900s around those times, and it's just like you never hear about black people in the war or anything else. And then even going to the upper floors and seeing stuff about like the music, and like I'm a musician myself and I play the violin, so that's like more classical music. I feel like you never see or hear about black people playing classical instruments. It's always like the stereotypical like, oh, black people just listen to rap and R&B and jazz, but you never really hear anything about classical music. So being able to see that was really cool because I was like, okay. And then even at Howard, how they have like music programs, was like you could see black people in the orchestra. Like that's nice because you never see that, and especially in like for me in a high school orchestra, there it's not very diverse, I'd say. Like it is, but not for black people. I feel like it's not very diverse. Most people, there's not a lot of black people in orchestra. So it was good to see the diversity of music and like how how many genres and how I know what I was gonna say. How like music really started like with African American people. Think about Elvis and how he stole like Hound Dog from, what is her name? I don't remember her name, but how he stole that song from her, and then even Fast Car, I forget the artist who sung that too, I forget her name as well, but like how the country singer, his version of that song is the most popular, so it's just like it's always stealing the work, I feel like, off of other people's backs, and it's like I don't really like that. I was gonna say something else, but I can't think of what I was going to say. Oh, I remember seeing Scott Joplin. So I've researched about Scott Joplin a ton, and I personally, I'm like a fangirl, I feel like, but he helped pave the way of ragtime music, and like that's a very like it's a hard technique with like a bunch of polyrhythmic rhythms in the piano playing, and just seeing him, that also made me emotional. I was like, oh my god, he's in the museum. But seeing him in like in the music section and also in the lower section of music was really beautiful, because I think he's like French and African American, and how like being a composer in that time is really hard, and being able to perform music and play your own music. He also wrote plays, I believe, because he had like a stage play called Treemanisha that he also wrote, and like he got to listen to that in the music area. He could like learn about the music and drag it on to the playlist and hear it. So I thought that was really cool.
They're bringing it out.
I just wanted to piggyback I was on talking about African Americans in World War One, and like and all of like the wars, like Civil War and things like that. I was reading when we were at the African American Museum that like even though like they got to do all these things, they got to fight in the war, they still were treated poorly. They still like had to basically be slaves when it came to their white like soldier, like other soldiers. They still had to do things like that. And also piggybacking off of the musician part, I'm also a musician. I'm in Ferris's choir, and I'm the only black girl in the whole entire choir. Out of 6 choirs, I'm the only black girl. So when it comes to things like that, it was so nice to hear about, to actually like see things about like the singers. And I saw this one like beautiful dress. I don't remember her name, but it was just like things like that, getting to listen to read and things like that. I just thought it was really beautiful, and things seeing that made me feel as a younger black woman who wants to, still sing and wants to do all these things, that like you can do this, and that, you don't let it stop you. Don't let you being the only one, cuz one thing that I've learned, especially on this trip, but just learned especially this year, that like your voice, even if it's the only one, it still matters. Cuz like I think I was even talking to Corey about this, like when it comes to different things, even when it with women and things like that, is always like, no, you need one more person to confirm this. You need 10 more people to confirm this. But no, if you're a human being, your voice should be the only one that the thing that matters the most, especially if it's just you. And I think that's one thing that our society should definitely get better with. Like, just because it's one person doesn't mean that it's not true, that it didn't happen, or that this, that's just one thing that I realized. Anyway, so yeah.
Thank you.
But I'm just appreciative of you guys for being like hard on us at times, but pushing us to be the best version of ourselves. But also like showing us a part of history we don't really see in our natural textbooks and like our school. And yeah, that's really it. God, he's going next.
Huh?
What? First of all, what country are you from originally?
I'm from Rwanda.
From Rwanda.
United States.
Being able to go to the African American Museum and to see a lot of that history that talks about, that whole slave trade from Africa. Being from Rwanda, how did that touch you? I mean, how did that affect you?
Well, I mean, they don't really teach us that out there, so like, I didn't get to learn about it until I got here. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, type.
Okay. But you see the connection between Black Americans and our African brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
where sometimes there's that divide or disconnect, and sometimes even Black Americans even want our African brothers and sisters to recognize again that we come from you.
Yeah.
We are you, you are us. See, we have no land here. They took us from our land. So we are those stolen bodies. See, and you're reconnecting us with that very heritage, again, of our motherland.
I don't really got much to say to that. I don't really say, yeah.
So, so you seeing what Black Americans, were struggling through with slavery, suffering, and knowing again that where it all started at. Does it make you feel again like, inspired to say, I want to be a part of changing that?
Yeah.
Like what?
But you want to help?
Yeah, is that serious?
Now, you guys are both from
From
Hawaii.
the same, from the, you want to help? You want to ask? Like.
He's asking if you want to come. You're from Rwanda.
What was the question?
Because I get into it as super rare, so like,
What was the question?
super rare.
Like you feel like you could be a part of the change, like the new change.
I think it was cool to say. I mean, to see like the progress that we made over time, and I think that there's still more that we can like achieve on, and I think that was pretty awesome to see.
Awesome. You said that was super.
I forgot what floor it was on. I think it was the first floor. There was like a quote on like a timeline. It was like, what was it, Kimani?
It was like, I can't feel comfortable without a stock of slaves to do our children's bidding.
I think it was like I won't feel comfortable until I know I have a stock of slaves doing work for my children's children, or like something like that. Yeah. But it was just like the fact that was like almost every slave owners or white European like mindset during this time, like just pure conquer for money. But that was just like the fact that some people probably still have that mindset, but in like modern day history or like modern day time, it's just like, yeah.
I'll add up to what Dion said about the about like how people, how they, the about how the white slave owners and the Europeans really cared. Like, go back to the first floor about the slaves and stuff. They talked about how like the Africans really had no choice when the Europeans and the white slave owners came, because like it was either like they had to like sell some of their own people to be able to feed their own family. So like they were kind of like going against each other, but like it wasn't like for bad reasons, because like some of them like had no choice, but like they had like family of five, family of like a lot of families to feed. So they really just had to they had to sell people, and that just like was a way of like for them to survive and stuff like that, and just yeah.
So the floor that really moved me, it was the first floor, and Mercedes was there. It was the floor where they showed all the shackles of the slaves, and they had these like really tiny shackles, and it was for the babies. Like as soon as they were born, their feet got straight shackled, and they were really tiny, and I was like, wow, like that just really moved me.
What do you guys believe like impacted you the most, like in the whole trip, not just like the museum, like the whole trip?
Thinking about that whole scenario is just like crazy. I remember like when I was younger, I'd probably get in trouble and Dad would send me like something to research just to learn, and you always sent me that too, like the Emmett Till like case. I just remember that. I like remember reading it, just like thinking about it, like processing, like how can someone physically bring themselves to do that to another person with no remorse, just no second thought for another human being. It's just, and then like I don't know, it's just it feels sick to me, just like a sick mindset. And then they just go into court and they lie about it and can never get it fixed. She'll never get her son back. It's just
That's good sharing.
sad case.
Yeah, Sean?
To go off with like what Kimani just said, um, like you saw it? Okay. It's just like really heartbreaking to like see that floor and to see like that entire thing. and it really moved me, like walking in, and it was like walking into like what the actual funeral was like, and then like you had to like look into the casket and like just see his face, and just like see how beaten and like mutilated it was, and it didn't even look like a human face. Like I don't even know what it looked like, something unrecognizable, and like it was just really heartbreaking to look at for me. Yeah.
Arvin?
I think it was very different going to the Capitol and then going to the African American Museum, just because like, not too much. Okay, just just because like most of that stuff was just stuff we learned in school, and it's kind of like, okay, like move on. And then we went to that. Don't laugh. Why are you laughing?
Keep
Can
going.
we
You're
res-
fine. Keep going. Keep going. I can say this after you. I got you.
Oh. Okay, and so then just like going to the African American Museum, it was just like, yeah, it was some stuff that we kind of like discussed in school, but then it was some things that I never even seen before, and it was just kind of like, whoa, eye opening in a way. And then some like three things really stood out to me, and it was like the wall where it showed where like the slaves are getting shipped from, how much were sold, and how much even survived, because it could be like 500 were sold, yet only like 100 survived, and it was just it was really heartbreaking. Also, the shackle, the
Baby shackles.
yeah, it was crazy. What can babies do? And I don't know, like right?
Just like the way they treat
Yeah.
the parent, like the way they like treated like the mothers and like the kids, and like how they like, I guess like took like the kids away, like how they like took the kids away from their parents, fed the babies to the crocodiles, or like even like shook the babies in the backs, as you were telling me. Like it's very, very like sad and heartbreaking, and it's like kind of like dehumanizing. Like it's very like gross in a way, like super.
Sounds good.
Okay. So honestly, what stood out to me the most would probably be like the external part of it, like being around so many people that like look like me. Just because I lived in Spokane for so long that I kind of got so used to like seeing people who are not like me. So like I don't see like of course like we don't see much representation up here, but like in like museums and such, but like we see it in the people like around here. Like somebody black owns a bagel shop, like somebody black
Like this
is working in a
chocolate
shoe
city.
store. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very interesting. And then I'm also gonna kind of like build off what she said. We live in like a really like white state, and we are in these history classes being taught about like white history, to be honest, even though like there's so much more to that, and we're never taught about anything before that. Why are you moving the camera? Anyways, like y'all not, I'm trying to talk. Anyways, so it's just very interesting that we don't see things like that.
Oh wow. I wanted to like touch on that like being a Native American woman and a black woman, like within the museum I saw things like, oh, like after all of the white people who came to America like stole my people's land and like killed them all after using them for labor and like killing them from diseases like smallpox, and then like they just transitioned into using like black people that they took from the slave trade in Africa. I just thought like, dang, like in history, like black people, Native people, women, like I never got a break. And that like sometimes in my current life, I struggle with thinking that like, oh, I need to be this workaholic that's constantly doing something, because in history, like that's all I saw is that my type of people were constantly working or doing something. And that sometimes I need to give myself a break and understand like, even though we're constantly working and constantly doing something, it's okay to, yeah. Oh, I also wanted to say, apart from the trip, that I'm really appreciative that I got this opportunity in the first place, and that we should all, like as students, even though we were like clashing with our chaperones or like other people's chaperones, we should like take away our pride and our emotions and think logically that we should be thankful that these people even took us here and gave us $300 and fed us and that this is a great opportunity for all of us that we do not get to receive, like as colored people, like we do not get paid like that, or yeah. Thank you.
What impacted me the most, what I like took away from this was like I was able to be myself. I was able to walk outside and not feel judged. It was more so like, because in Spokane you walk outside and people are like, oh, why does she look like this, or why is her hair like that, or they like to they want to be I feel like what I feel like they want to be like us. Like when they do the self tanning, I don't like that. Like why are you orange? But yeah, and it was like I liked saying, "Oh, you're pretty," and then they say it back. Like it just feels better hearing it from your own people. So yeah.
I had a really good experience in DC. My favorite part was probably the museum, the African American Museum. It was like, I didn't like how it was all like really sad and emotional, but I did like how all the accomplishments of all the black people were at the top, and it like brightened up the mood after, because everybody's energy kind of went a little off towards the beginning, and then everybody was like brightened up. So that was a good part. Yeah.
So like the most impactful thing for me was seeing the train and like the shackles like in person, because like when you're reading in the history books you read about all these things and what's happening. The black people sitting in the back and like them having like smaller things, and when you went on the train you looked on the very front of the train, you could see the white women's and white men's lounge and bathroom, and there was chairs in there and they were spacious. People with like 5 people could be in there at once. And then towards the back, Dion was trying to tell me that the seats were smaller in the back, but they looked the same to me. But the bathrooms were definitely smaller. Like there was no chair. Only the toilet was right behind the door, and only one person could be in there at a time. And then just the shackles, like you read about the shackles all the time in books, history books and stuff, and you just got to see like what they were like. Miss Stacy was telling us that they would tighten the shackles like tight, and they wouldn't care if your circulation stopped or if your hand fell off. And yeah, that's what was impactful for me.
Well, for me, like the American Museum, African American Museum, when we hit one of the floors that had like someone said already, like the little, I don't remember what
The shackles?
Yeah, the shackle, like how they were, the little.
Yeah, how they were little, and it was weird because, they looked like they were for babies. Right?
Yeah, they look like they were for babies, and it was just heartbreaking to see. And then there was another one that like caught my eye, and nobody has said it, but like when we reached like the paintings, each painting had a meaningful meaning.
Yeah.
There's some with like their hands like this, like hands like that, and then there was one where he was like in a prison uniform, and then like he had like a chain on his leg. Like they all had like meanings, and like I think that like stood out for me more than any of the others. So.
Okay.
So. That's good.
There was another thing that I also wanted to touch base on or comment on, and it's just the way that education runs. Like, think about it. In the beginning, you don't have school. The first 5 years of your life is like when you're soaking things up as a sponge. And you're not in school. I mean, some people do like their sign language and stuff and whatnot. But you're not in school. And where are you learning to walk, talk, function as a human being? It's the environment that you're in. It's the experiences that you're living, that you're seeing. So even taking that back with slavery, it's like, do you think the babies really knew that they were slaves, having them shackles on their feet? No, but growing up in that environment, it's like they are conditioning their minds to believe that. So being here, the one thing I can say is I've learned more here than I have the last, how many years have I been in school? What, 12, 13? Yeah, I did 2 years of preschool, so 13 for me. Last 13 years of school, I did not learn as much as I have being in this environment, being able to experience it. So there's that. Then,
Okay, I was just gonna add one last thing, and it was about calling people out on their actions. Because I feel like when we were going through the museum and seeing such hardship and how much suffering went on for years and years and years without any, well, not without any progress, but like took a lot to be able to get to where we are now. And I feel like a lot of people overlook that, and they'll be like, oh, slavery was only what, like hundreds of years ago? And it's like, no, like what are you talking about? Like there was a section in the museum that showed like when like certain emancipation laws and like integration laws were put in place. And Texas, I think, was one of the latest ones, and it was 1958. That was not that long ago. People who were born then are only in like their 60s or 70s then. It's like people's grandparents were alive when this happened. It was not that long ago, and people like to downplay that, and that hurts. And I feel like it was a good experience because in our schools, yet again, that are predominantly white, a lot of people can be super ignorant and blind to change or wanting to grow. And that upsets me because kids will think that, oh, dark humor is funny, and they'll say slurs and a bunch of other things in the hallway or say insensitive things. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, how does this impact anyone? You're not, like, there's nothing good going on here. This isn't funny. Like, these are other people's experiences, and you have to realize what you're saying and what you're doing affects people, and like other people learn for that and learn from that bad behavior. And that's upsets me a lot too, because like you'll hear people saying slurs in the hallway, and like this is my own personal opinion, but sometimes when other people of color, and I understand that we can make like stereotypical jokes to each other because it makes light of the situation of what we've had to go through, but when people are saying some things that are a little extreme, especially being in a predominantly white area, people are going to be like, oh, they call each other that all the time, so it must be okay, when it's not. And that upsets me. So it's like, I feel like now, as scary as it can be, and like knowing time and place, I'm gonna call people out. If I hear something going on in the hallway more, I'm like, don't say that.
Okay, so I just wanted to share a quote that I found that I took a picture of, because I'm not sure who said it, but somebody said that they feel like it's never going to change. And that's why I feel, no, it's not a point out. Like, I understand that point of view. Like, that's okay for you to feel that way. But what I'm trying to say is this trip is so important because it helps toward the change that we will make. We will make a change. Out of all the kids in this room, somebody will make a change. But I want to say the quote really quick. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right temporarily defeated is stronger than evil triumphant. And what that means to me is we know the truth of what happened. We know that we're not dumb. We know that we're not, thugs. We know that we're not good for nothing. We know that we're smart and we're strong and we're going to do something. And so that's why I want to say this trip was so important, because it gave us a lot of us opportunities that none of us thought we would ever have. I feel like this is important because for little black kids to see this, I hope that this was an amazing first trip, but I hope that this continues to happen year after year, because year after year it will inspire and motivate more black children to go and do good things, and to go and rebuild systems, and to go and change the world. And that's what we need, and that's how we fix it. So I hope that Sorry. So what I was saying, what I mean is I hope that we will continue this tradition and bringing black students and giving black students a chance to see HBCUs. There's no HBCUs in Washington. Washington State. We had to come here. And I'm so grateful for, everybody to have the chance to see it, because I feel like it was so powerful. And that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, so we wanted to take this moment to express our sincere gratitude towards the Way to Justice for giving us this great opportunity to be here.
And we've all learned a lot from this experience. We've learned some in school, and to be here in DC, it's very eye-opening to us to get it from different perspectives, and we really appreciate it.
We'll also like to thank our chaperones at this time for taking the time and money out of the week to help us experience the things that the school can provide for us.
And overall, we want to say thank you.
Come on, brother.
Speech, speech. Speech. She gonna speech. I promise you I'm not. This is great. So this will go on a wall in our office. We have a wall in our office. If you guys have not been by our office, you should actually come into our space. We have a youth empowerment wall. And so this will be a testament to just how powerful our organization is when we are able to support, young youth. And so this has been an awesome experience, awesome trip. And so I hope that you all have learned something, because I also have learned something. And I'll tell you what I've learned. And so out of all of my years of living, and I'm not very old, by the way, when I went to that African American museum, I had knew the history of Emmett Till, but I didn't know exactly to what extent. And so really going there to be able to visit that memorial, I learned that all he did was whistle at a young white woman, and it cost him his life. And so like, I didn't know that part, and so for me, I'm like, wow, I learned something too. And so I hope, if nothing else, you were able to actually literally learn from this, experience it, and I hope that it is life-changing for you all. 10, 15 years later down the road, I hope that this is a conversation that you were having with someone to tell them about just how this trip has impacted your life. And so this is awesome. This is not something that we expected, and this is a great photo. This is a great photo.